Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the steamy port air of 15th century Bengal, where fog curls around wooden docks and the creaking of cargo ropes mingles with the caws of seabirds. Somewhere behind a row of baskets full of turmeric, something moves slowly, towering, and entirely out of place. You see spots, long legs, a swaying neck that seems to go on forever. And no, your sleepy brain isn't tricking you. That's a giraffe. In the wrong hemisphere. This is real history. You're standing at a pivotal, bizarre, and oddly charming moment. The arrival of an African giraffe into the orbit of Ming Dynasty China. And yes, you probably wouldn't survive this journey. Between the diseases, the pirates, and the questionable snacks served on 15th century ships, you'd be lucky to make it past the Indian Ocean. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where you listening from? And what time is it where you are? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're there on the damp, buzzing shoreline of Bengal, dressed in loose, sweat-damp linen, staring alongside sailors and dock workers as a truly strange cargo is unloaded. The beast steps off a narrow gangplank with hesitant grace, towering above the crowd. Its legs wobble. A child screams. A merchant drops his bundle of cinnamon. You nearly forget to breathe. Is that a demon? Someone whispers. You don't know yet that this creature came from the lands far beyond the Horn of Africa, where Somali and Malindi traders offered exotic animals to gain favor with the powerful Chinese Admiral Zheng He. You just know this thing is huge, has lashes like feather dusters, and looks like it could chew your hair without bending down. Historians still argue whether this Pacific giraffe originated in modern Kenya or Somalia, but the fact remains. It came across Indian Ocean trade routes in a delicate diplomatic relay stretching from East Africa to South Asia. And now it's your problem. Or, well, your emperor's problem. But since you're here to witness it, that makes it your concern too. The air smells like clove and brine. The giraffe shifts its weight and peers over everyone's heads, chewing slowly, unbothered by the human chaos it's caused. Its handler, a wiry man with sun-scorched skin and the patience of a monk, tries to keep the beast from licking a nearby altar. Rumors spread instantly. Is it a divine omen? A demon steed? The long-lost cousin of a dragon? By the time the sun sets, a scribe has already scribbled something about spotted skin, towering neck, the tongue of an eel, and the gait of an anxious crane. That's pretty accurate, actually. You sleep that night in a cramped room above a spice shop, but you hear the giraffe in your dreams. It's breathing, the click of its hooves on wood, a slow, leaf-rustling sound even though there are no trees nearby. The next morning, it's all anyone can talk about. The giraffe has been led to a more secure courtyard, shaded by palm fronds and surrounded by incense-burning officials with scrolls and speculative eyebrows. You get close enough to hear one merchant claim he saw it speak. In perfect Sanskrit, he swears. It said, "I am the bridge between worlds." Okay, pal. Still, the arrival isn't just a curiosity. It's part of something massive. The Ming Dynasty's push to build and show off its global connections. Admiral Zheng He's fleet, the so-called treasure fleet, is docked nearby. And let's be real, it's the size of a floating city. Bigger than anything Europe is sailing. Some of the ships even have hydraulic steering. Yes, in the 1400s, you walk among crates of porcelain, silk, and bronze mirrors, and nestled among them is this giraffe, chewing cud like it's the most normal thing in the world. The handlers use a mix of Arabic, Swahili, and Chinese to communicate badly. There's a lot of pointing and shrugging. One Chinese court official records the giraffe's name as something like Qilin, linking it immediately to an auspicious mythical creature. Not because it is one, but because, well, have you ever seen a giraffe? In medieval China, it's about as mythical as you can get. A soft breeze kicks up. You watch the giraffe tilt its head to follow the sky, like it's scanning for birds that know its name. And in that moment, standing in a humid, spice-scented port, you feel the weight of something strange and unforgettable. The world is smaller than you thought. And weirder. Definitely weirder. You're up before dawn the next morning, groggy from the heat, clutching a bitter cup of spiced tea that tastes like it's been filtered through a sandal. Word has it the Giraffe is being loaded onto Zheng He's flagship. Yes, that flagship. The floating palace, known to Chinese scribes as a treasure ship. You wipe your eyes and stumble toward the docks, just in time to catch a chaotic, slow-motion ballet involving ropes, crates, pulleys, and one very skeptical giraffe. It's not thrilled about this part. Sailors shout from high riggings as the beast resists boarding, its long legs skittering on the gangplank like a cartoon character on roller skates. The ship's crew, more used to cinnamon and ivory than wildlife with opinions, tries everything, coaxing with bananas, singing off-key lullabies, even wafting incense in its face like it's a stressed emperor. Eventually, they build a makeshift ramp and roll barrels of water up first, to make it think this is all very normal. The giraffe, who you're fairly sure is now the smartest being in a 10-mile radius, gives a long, judging look to everyone involved, then steps up with the weary dignity of someone who knows this will be a very long trip. You follow the crew onto the ship, and you're hit with the staggering smell of salted fish, exotic woods, and too many unwashed men living in very close quarters. The treasure ship is enormous, almost 400 feet long, with 9 masts, and filled to the brim with silk, medicinal herbs, exotic animals, and enough bureaucracy to sink an empire. Scrolls are everywhere. One official is frantically cataloging giraffe droppings into a porcelain jar. You pretend not to see. Historians still argue whether Zheng He's fleet truly reached the scope the records suggest. It's possible later dynasties exaggerated, but the scale of the operation is breathtaking. Over 300 ships, upwards of 27,000 men. Every journey, a performance of imperial grandeur wrapped in adventure, diplomacy, and occasionally animal logistics. You're stationed near the giraffe's pen. Pen being a generous word for what is essentially a slightly larger box filled with hay and panic. There's a sailor whose entire job is to keep the giraffe from licking the sails. He's losing. On calmer days, the giraffe paces with slow, deliberate grace, gazing across the sea as though it's composing poetry in its head. On rougher days, it plants its legs, closes its eyes, and sways in a trance-like resistance to the rolling ship, like it's pretending this whole nightmare isn't happening. The crew starts calling it Big Ears, which is not terribly imaginative, but they mean well. You notice a few sailors bring it gifts, a silk scarf tied around its neck, it hates it, a string of beads, immediately chewed, even a bronze mirror, which causes a full-blown giraffe identity crisis. One day, as the ship lurches through a violent storm off the coast of Sumatra, a wave crashes across the deck, and the giraffe lets out a long, low groan that chills you more than the wind. The storm passes. Everyone survives. But afterward, the crew treats the giraffe with strange reverence, as though it had personally tamed the sea. You find yourself talking to it sometimes. It doesn't answer, obviously, but it listens. Or at least it doesn't walk away while you ramble about your dreams or complain about the sailor who keeps eating your rice cakes. One quiet evening, as the sky bleeds lavender and the wind settles, you watch the giraffe lean its head against a post, eyes half-lidded, lost in some ancient giraffe memory, maybe of acacia trees, maybe just of not being on a boat. And in that moment, as the ship drifts toward the Malacca Strait, you realize something quietly astonishing. This creature is now part of a trade network that spans from Mogadishu to Nanjing. It has crossed oceans and cultures, survived storms and seasickness, and become a symbol, though no one can quite agree of what. And yet, for all its grandeur and myth-making potential, it's still just a giraffe. Curious, nervous, hungry. You sleep that night with the gentle creaking of the ship and the rhythmic breath of the giraffe beside you. And somewhere in the dark, the beast lets out a long, fluttering snore that sounds suspiciously like a flute note. You try to remember if giraffes are supposed to make sounds. They're not. You fall asleep anyway. The wind shifts. You wake to the booming bark of orders from somewhere above and the groan of timbers settling as the fleet slows its pace. Land is approaching. Not just any land. This is the southern coast of Ming, China, and Admiral Zheng. He is preparing to sail triumphantly into port. You stretch, Brush sea salt from your eyelashes, and look over at your long-necked bunkmate, who is blinking slowly, chewing what appears to be yesterday's bamboo mat. It's time for the giraffe's grand entrance. You help the crew prepare the creature for its debut. The handlers dress it in a bright red silk harness embroidered with clouds and cranes, clearly designed for something smaller and not shaped like a walking periscope. It's cinched in awkward places. The giraffe does not enjoy this. A scroll reader insists it adds auspicious energy, and you silently hope no one gets kicked. Zhang Yi himself appears, regal and unreadable, cloaked in robes that ripple like river water. His eyes rest on the giraffe with practiced serenity, but his lips twitch ever so slightly. Is he amused? You're not sure. He orders the procession forward. Now picture this. An enormous fleet of treasure ships and smaller escort vessels slowly cruising into the harbor of Nanjing, banners fluttering, drums pounding, and at the center of it all at the giraffe. You ride beside it, gripping a rope that isn't helping. Crowds gather along the dock in slack-jawed amazement. Some fall to their knees. A few run away screaming. Children point. Scholars take furious notes. Fishermen cross themselves, even though that's not their religion. The smell of brine and lantern smoke mixes with the collective sound of gasping. You hear murmurs. Qilin. It must be a qilin. Ah yes, the qilin. A legendary Chinese creature with deer hooves, dragon scales, a lion's tail, and the gentle disposition of a unicorn on a spa day. It's said to appear only in times of great peace and wise rule. Naturally, your giraffe, spotted, dignified, clearly not from around here, is instantly identified as one. Historians still argue whether the giraffe was called a qilin sincerely or just as a form of imperial flattery. Probably both. No one wanted to be the official who looked at the emperor's magic giraffe and said, "Actually, it's just some leaf chomper from Kenya." You and the beast are paraded through the city streets toward the Forbidden City. The giraffe walks with surprising grace, ignoring the chaos around it. A few times, it ducks to avoid banners. Once, it tries to eat a paper lantern, causing minor panic. A lady faints. A rooster explodes. As you cross through a gilded gate into the outer court of the Imperial Palace, you can feel the shift in atmosphere. Everything is hushed. Even the giraffe seems to slow down, as if it knows this part matters. Courtiers stand in formation. Musicians hold their breath. The whole court is here, dressed like a scroll painting come to life. And then he steps out, the Yongle Emperor, son of heaven, ruler of the Ming Dynasty. He wears robes of brilliant yellow silk stitched with dragons that seem ready to leap from the fabric. He walks with calm power, eyes narrowed, expression unreadable. When he sees the giraffe, he stops. One breath. Two. Then slowly he smiles. The giraffe blinks and lowers its head. Not a bow, but close enough. Everyone around you exhales in relief. You're still clutching your rope, like it's your diploma. A eunuch proclaims the giraffe to be a heavenly sign. Someone faints again. A scholar writes down. It walks with celestial rhythm. Its breath is pure wind. Its spots form the calligraphy of destiny. You suspect he's making that up on the spot, but it's working. The emperor speaks. His voice is soft but carries. This qilin is proof of my virtue and harmony with heaven. Let it be recorded. You nod solemnly, pretending that the giraffe hasn't been chewing its own decorative tassel this entire time. From that moment, the giraffe becomes a celebrity. Not just an exotic import, but a centerpiece of Zhang Yi's legacy, the crown jewel of China's global reach. This is no mere animal. It's a symbol, a statement, proof that the Ming Dynasty's influence stretches so far. Even nature itself seems to bow before it. But deep down, you know the truth. This giraffe didn't ask to be a symbol. It didn't volunteer to become a myth. It's just a tall, hungry creature that survived a journey most humans wouldn't. And now it's standing in the middle of the most powerful court on Earth, licking the emperor's ceremonial umbrella. You can't help but smile. You blink slowly in the morning haze, blinking at sunlight that dances across golden roof tiles. The giraffe stands in the center of an ornate palace courtyard, flanked by guards who maintain an admirably straight face, considering they've been assigned to what is effectively leafy horse duty. A low murmur buzzes among the gathered nobles. You're standing just behind a scribe who's furiously sketching what he insists is a perfect likeness, but which looks suspiciously like a dragon with a chicken's neck. This is your new reality. You're witnessing diplomacy done Ming style, not through endless treaties, but through spectacle. And today's spectacle is an awkwardly long-necked African import who's just become the softest missile in the Empire's foreign policy arsenal. Make no mistake, this giraffe is now a weapon. A very tall, very spotted one. The giraffe didn't just waltz into China on its own. It came as a gift from the Sultan of Bengal, who received it himself via trade networks linking East Africa to India. The Sultan, savvy as ever, bundled it with other lavish items, gold bowls, rare incense, and enough peacock feathers to start a parade, to send with Zheng He back to China. Because what do you give the emperor, who already has everything? Something nobody's ever seen before. Something divine. Something with a neck taller than the palace gates. Historians still argue whether the Sultan's intent was religious diplomacy, trade enticement, or a slightly panicked attempt to one-up his rivals. But it worked. The Yongle emperor was delighted, or at the very least, delighted enough to declare the giraffe a Qilin. And from there, the animal was reborn, not as an oddity, but as a cosmological affirmation that China was, in fact, winning at everything. In the weeks that follow, you watch the giraffe become a kind of PR superstar. Its very presence suggests that China's reach is so vast that even the creatures of distant lands bow in tribute. That's the message, anyway. You follow the giraffe on its royal walkabouts. When the emperor receives foreign envoys or hosts high-level ministers, the giraffe is often paraded in the background, quiet, dignified, spectacular. It doesn't speak, of course, but it doesn't have to. Its existence is the loudest kind of humble brag. There's even a rumor floating around that the emperor considered training it to bow on command. That didn't work out. Turns out giraffes are not keen on synchronized kneeling. Some court scholars begin writing about the giraffe as if it's a conscious participant in imperial virtue. It appeared in response to righteous governance, one insists. Its gaze reflects harmony between heaven and man, says another. You're pretty sure its gaze reflects hunger and the desire to chew on the palace shrubbery. But hey, never interrupt an official in the middle of a divine metaphor. One day, you're invited to a diplomatic banquet in the Hall of Supreme Harmony, where representatives from Java, Malacca, and even faraway Arabia gather to eat lotus buns and pretend not to stare at the giraffe munching leaves outside the window. A silk-robed minister raises a cup of warm wine and declares, "Truly, our empire is the heart of the world, when even the beasts of distant lands kneel in awe." The giraffe sneezes mid-chew and flings half a mulberry leaf into your lap. You nod sagely. In quieter moments, you overhear whispered conversations. Not everyone is thrilled. Some bureaucrats grumble about the cost of importing and caring for a giant picky eater. One insists the giraffe is a distraction from real policy. Another mutters, "If it's such a heavenly omen, why does it keep pooping in the Jade Garden?" Valid question, but the imperial court is all about symbols. And nothing says global superpower like showing off a creature no neighboring kingdom can match. The giraffe becomes a diplomatic flex, an organic monument to the glory of Ming China. And in a way, it works. Other nations take note. Stories ripple outward, from Korea to Japan, even westward toward the Islamic world, about the mystical beast that now walks among China's imperial gardens. Some believe it's Qilin. Some think it's a message from heaven. One visiting merchant is overheard telling a story that sounds suspiciously like your giraffe eating a thundercloud and spitting gold coins. You don't correct him. Honestly, it would ruin the vibe. As the sun sets on another long day of ceremonial grazing and low-stakes political theater, the giraffe settles down near a plum tree, chewing with the rhythmic calm of a monk in meditation. You sit beside it, scribbling notes in a borrowed scroll. It leans its head toward you. You pause. Then it sneezes again, soaking your sandals. Diplomacy, you think, is a messy business. The courtyard's quiet in the morning, just the soft brushing of brooms and the faint murmur of temple bells off in the distance. You're sitting under a painted pavilion watching the giraffe. Your giraffe now. Let's be honest. grazing on bamboo shoots that it's not supposed to be eating, but definitely prefers. The giraffe has found a rhythm here in the palace. So have you. It moves like it's always been part of this world, even if it's still confused by doors. Today is different. You've heard the whispers all morning. The emperor is coming, not just passing through, not a drive-by bow or a remote order to carry on and feed the divine creature. No, he's walking. To see the giraffe. Again, you smooth your tunic. Try not to trip over your own anticipation. Yonla strides into the courtyard flanked by ministers, scholars, eunuchs, and a nervous official clutching a scroll as long as your arm. The giraffe, unbothered, flicks its ears. You swear it yawns. The emperor pauses, looks, and he laughs. It's short and low and startled, as if the great son of heaven himself just remembered that this absurd-looking creature is real. It is more graceful than I imagined, he says. He walks forward, slow and confident, stopping just in reach of the giraffe's curious snout. Everyone holds their breath. The giraffe does what it always does when introduced to someone new. It sniffs, then licks his sleeve. That's how the emperor of Ming China is blessed with a string of saliva that a eunuch quickly dabs away with silk. You look away. You don't want to laugh and be executed in the same hour. Yonla calls for the court astrologer. This Qilin, he says, gesturing to the giraffe, proves that heaven smiles upon my reign. The astrologer, who is clearly winging it, nods. Yes, your majesty. Its appearance aligns with the star of peace, the ninth harmonic cycle, and, the lucky goat sign. The emperor smiles again. It is an omen. It will be recorded. And just like that, history changes. The court artists are summoned. Not one, not two, but 5. They unroll scrolls, prepare inks, grind pigments. The giraffe becomes a subject of imperial art. And as it turns out, Ming Dynasty artists are not great at giraffes. You peer over their shoulders as they try to capture its likeness. One paints a deer with a dragon's head and flames for hooves. Another draws something that looks like a cow on stilts wearing pajamas. The best of them gets the neck right, but then adds a unicorn horn. You try to correct them, gently. It doesn't actually breathe clouds. You whisper. They ignore you. Cloud-breathing cells. One painter whispers, "Do we know what its cry sounds like?" You want to say, "Yes, it sneezed in my shoes." But you just nod wisely, like wind through distant pines. That line ends up in a poem. Historians still argue whether the Yonla emperor truly believed the giraffe was a Qilin, or whether he leaned into the symbolism for political gain. Probably both. Yonla was brilliant like that, a ruler who understood the performance of power just as well as the practice of it. And this giraffe, calm, strange, impossible, was the perfect stage prop. That night, back in your chamber, you read the first of what will become many official accounts of the Qilin's arrival. It's grandiose, full of metaphor, and absolutely includes phrases like the beast of heaven, appearing in righteous reign, blessed be the harmony. It does not mention the giraffe knocking over 2 lanterns that afternoon, trying to reach a melon. Still, the moment's not lost on you. This giraffe, once a quiet browser of African acacia groves, has become the subject of poetry, ceremony, and low-budget divine reverence. And while it probably just wants to go home, it seems content enough with its diet of mulberry leaves and occasional shoulder scratches. You lean against the stone wall, gazing out into the starlit courtyard, where the giraffe dozes standing up, swaying gently like a reed in a breeze. And you think, not bad for something with knees that bend the wrong way. You're in the hall of celestial observation, trying not to spill tea on your robe, while a court philosopher with eyebrows, like startled moths, lectures about the spiritual implications of the giraffe's elbows. You've heard 5 versions of the same theory already this week, that this creature, this long-legged leaf cruncher, is no mere animal. It's a message. The giraffe, meanwhile, is outside, chewing a ginkgo branch and blinking slowly at the moon. Inside the hall, it's all incense smoke and intellectual theater. A Confucian scholar with a scroll as long as a bow pontificates. It is not flesh, but metaphor. The Qilin reflects inner virtue. That it arrived during the reign of our emperor proves his moral clarity and celestial favor. A Taoist elder disagrees. The creature bends the natural world around it. It is a spirit made visible, a guardian of harmony. He pauses to sip tea and sneaks in a belch. Very spiritual. Then the Buddhists chime in. Or perhaps it is an illusion, a test of our attachment to form. It has no real self, just long legs and impermanence. You shift uncomfortably. No one here has ever seen a giraffe outside of this one. Most base their arguments on ancient texts, diagrams, or dreams involving fiery clouds. And yet here they are, debating its purpose like it's the key to enlightenment, and not just trying to lick condensation off a jade fountain. Historians still argue whether this moment, when the giraffe was deemed a Chilean, was born of sincere belief or political theater. But for now, you are inside the theater, and it's sold out. Later that day, you watch an artist unveil a massive new scroll for the emperor. The giraffe is depicted with crimson hooves, a lion's mane, scales, and a benevolent grin that looks suspiciously human. You nod approvingly as everyone gasps in reverence. You're pretty sure that's not how knees work, but no one's asking you. The emperor declares it pleasing. The scroll is entered into the archives. The giraffe chews on someone's sleeve. What fascinates you most isn't the symbolism or the ceremony. It's how this creature keeps triggering everyone's need to define it. Some see peace. Others see power. A few secretly think it's a really weird cow. But the giraffe doesn't care. You've started taking it on quiet walks through the side gardens, where it sniffs curiously at plum trees and watches dragonflies with the serene focus of a monk trying to guess your deepest secrets. One afternoon, it crouches awkwardly and sits, yes, sits, its legs folding into a mess of angles and joints that defy physics. A small group of scholars observe this act of sitting like it's the blooming of a rare lotus. It rests, one says, scribbling furiously, a clear omen of enduring peace. Another insists it's a sign that the emperor's plans to renovate the Western Canal system will be successful. You blink. The giraffe sneezes. 3 people take notes. It's not just the philosophers and artists. Ordinary people are starting to tell stories, too. You pass a vendor whispering to a child. They say if you see the Chilean in your dreams, you'll never fall sick. A porter boasts that his cousin saw it nod and now owns 2 oxen and a beautiful wife. Coincidence, he says, eyebrows raised. You decide not to challenge it. One night, you overhear a group of guards telling a ghost story involving the giraffe. They say it came from a land beyond the ocean where trees are upside down and beasts walk on stilts. They take turns adding to the myth. And its breath calms storms, one says. And its shadow heals broken bones. And if it walks past your rice field, your harvest will double. You chuckle. No one even remembers the word giraffe anymore. It's all Chilean now. Divine. Symbolic. Magical. And yet, you find a kind of comfort in the giraffe's indifference to all of this. It doesn't roar. It doesn't glow. It just grazes, naps, and occasionally headbutts the garden gate when no one's looking. The idea that something so ordinary could be mistaken for something sacred makes you wonder how much of life is just humans projecting poetry onto tall problems. You sit near it in the garden one evening, watching the stars wink into existence. The air smells like rain on stone. The giraffe is calm, belly full, neck stretched toward the tree canopy like it's reaching for the moon. And you think, maybe this isn't just about one giraffe in the wrong empire. Maybe it's about what people need to believe. That peace is possible. That virtue brings miracles. That the world is connected in quiet, leafy ways. And maybe, just maybe, that's not so ridiculous after all. You wake to the faint jingling of bells, distant chanting, and the unmistakable sound of someone trying very hard to move a giraffe without causing a diplomatic incident. Again, you're summoned to the imperial menagerie. Yes, that's a real thing. A zoo for emperors. But don't imagine neatly labeled enclosures or rows of tidy fences. No, this is more like an aristocratic fever dream. An imperial garden gone wild with feathers, fur, and frustration. The moment you step through the lacquered gates, you're hit with a scent that's equal parts jasmine, elephant, and whatever disaster is currently coming from the Tiger Pavilion. And in the middle of it all, rising like an enormous question mark over the chaos, stands the giraffe. You walk beside it as court officials bustle about. He must be displayed with the other foreign tributes, one says. Another mutters, keep it away from the ostriches. They fought last week. You don't ask. The giraffe is being relocated to what's called the harmonious pavilion of auspicious creatures. It's a gilded gazebo with precisely 0 giraffe-friendly amenities. Still, it's the prime real estate of the menagerie, right between the sacred white crane and the sulking peacock, who definitely knows it used to be someone's favorite. A junior attendant tries to tie a ribbon around the giraffe's neck. It does not go well. You settle into your unofficial new job, court handler, interpreter of giraffe-related omens, and part-time diplomatic shield. Not that you're complaining. You now have access to the Royal Menagerie's full collection, and it's just as bizarre as you imagined. There's a pair of zebras who've been named Thunder and Wisdom, though they mostly argue over food. A pygmy elephant that follows one eunuch everywhere like a spotted puppy. A cassowary that, judging by the bandages on 2 guards, is definitely possessed. And all of this is meant to show off the reach of the Ming Dynasty. It's not just political strength, it's ecological theater. Each creature a living receipt from distant lands, each one paraded as proof of China's central place in the world. Historians still argue whether the menagerie was built for genuine curiosity or as a display of overwhelming soft power. But to you, it's clear it's both. Nothing says, I'm winning at global diplomacy, like hosting a high tea between a gazelle and a spotted goose from Java. Every few days, the emperor strolls through for a bit of celestial ambience. He never stays long, but always pauses at the giraffe. Once, you see him reach out and lay a hand gently against its flank. It still amazes me, he murmurs, mostly to himself. A Chilean here in my garden. The giraffe doesn't react. It's busy reaching for a hanging basket of figs. Later, a courtier writes a poem about that moment. Heaven's beast, in the garden of man/crowned by stars, eating from silk. You privately consider suggesting Heaven's beast steals fruit and kicks fences as a more accurate edit. One afternoon, you're tasked with supervising a group of visiting nobles from Korea. They've come to admire the emperor's vast collection, and obviously to see the giraffe. As you guide them past the cranes and chittering monkeys, you notice the giraffe is hiding. It's behind a pavilion wall, neck stretched upward, doing a terrible job of being subtle. You give it the look. You know the one. We talked about this. Don't embarrass me look. It responds by sneezing onto the koi pond. You cover as best you can. The Chilean blesses the waters. You say confidently. They nod. Ah yes. Very auspicious. That evening, you catch an older court official watching the giraffe long after the visitors have left. He doesn't speak at first, just leans on a cane and studies the animal with a quiet reverence. Then he says, we spend so much effort trying to understand the message of things. But sometimes, isn't the message just that the world is larger than we imagined? You nod, not just out of respect, because he's right. The giraffe doesn't need to be magic to matter. Its existence here, in this garden on the other side of the world from its birthplace, is already more extraordinary than any prophecy. It's a living thread between continents, a gentle reminder that the known world is stitched together by curiosity, chance, and the occasional shipping crate full of leaves. That night, the giraffe lies down near the mango trees, folds its knees in that impossible way, and watches the stars. You sit nearby, wrapped in a borrowed silk robe that still smells faintly of the palace laundries. In the distance, a wolf calls. A crane answers. Somewhere, a cassowary destroys a fence post. And in that strange, sleepy harmony of creatures gathered from across the earth, you feel the world shift just slightly wider. The sun hasn't even risen when the courtyard erupts in confusion. You're jolted awake by shouting, frantic footsteps, and a very specific metallic clang that only ever means something broke and someone important is going to yell about it. You rush outside, still tying your sash, to find a huddle of nervous servants, a scattered pile of pomegranates, and your giraffe, who is notably standing very still with a bamboo ladder wrapped around its head like some kind of avant-garde crown. It takes you a moment to piece it together. Apparently, someone had tried, God's help us all, to trim the giraffe's ossicones. You know, those little bony nubs on its head that look like it's always mid-antenna installation. The logic, you're told, was to refine its celestial silhouette. You stare at the official responsible, a well-meaning but clearly deranged court attendant named Lou. They were asymmetrical, he insists, and there was a ceremonial inspection coming up. You do not punch Lou, but it's close. The giraffe is fine. Annoyed, sure, but unharmed. The same cannot be said for the decorative ladder, the eunuch who slipped in a pile of fig peels, or the court's collective dignity. By mid-morning, it's become a small scandal. You spend most of your day calming down officials and assuring the emperor that the Qilin is still functioning with harmonious grace. Meanwhile, the giraffe is being extra dramatic about it, refusing to eat unless hand-fed, and sighing loudly every few minutes like it's the heroine of a palace opera. You're eventually introduced to a new figure in the menagerie staff, the keeper of horned beasts. He's short, sunburnt, and wears a belt made of twine. His name is Wang, and he's been reassigned from the Yak division. When he first meets the giraffe, he doesn't bow or fumble. He just looks it up and down, squints, and mutters, "Those are some ridiculous legs." The giraffe likes him immediately. Wang becomes the unofficial giraffe whisperer. He coaxes it into a grooming routine, using a mixture of honey water and ancient flattery. He figures out that scratching the back of its jaw makes it lean into you like a lazy dog. He's also the one who invents the feeding staff, a pole with a tiny basket on the end that lets him deliver leaves to the giraffe's preferred altitude without standing on furniture. You're both deeply impressed and slightly ashamed you didn't think of it first. Wang's greatest achievement, though, is diplomatic, convincing the higher-ups to stop trying to modify the giraffe for aesthetics. The Qilin, he declares with gravelly authority, does not require symmetry. Heaven made it tall, spotted, and occasionally lopsided. That is the message. And weirdly, they believe him. Historians still argue whether Wang was just bluffing his way through dangerous waters, or whether he was sincerely tapping into ancient Taoist beliefs about natural harmony. Either way, his strategy works. The giraffe is left alone. For now, you and Wang become giraffe co-parenting partners. He handles feeding, grooming, and general mood management. You handle diplomacy, scroll painting corrections, and explaining to foreign envoys why the Qilin sometimes eats court documents. One particularly humid morning, you're summoned to a royal banquet where the emperor is hosting Persian and Javanese dignitaries. Naturally, the giraffe is part of the entertainment. The beast is walked through the banquet hall, wearing bells and garlands. Everyone claps politely. It snorts once, steps over a monk's foot, and almost knocks over a golden screen. A flute player faints. Then, the Javanese ambassador leans toward you. "That's a giraffe," he whispers. You pause. "It is a Qilin," you say, smiling. He raises an eyebrow. "Right, a Qilin with a preposterous tongue." You both chuckle. A quiet moment of shared truth beneath layers of theater. It's a giraffe. Of course it's a giraffe. But it's also a message, a symbol of reach, of myth, of connection. After the banquet, you find the giraffe back in the garden, resting its head against a pillar, eyes closed. Still wearing a garland of magnolia blossoms it hasn't yet bothered to eat. You sit beside it, watching the shadows lengthen. Somewhere, Wang is probably preparing a dinner of tree bark and moral support. The giraffe lets out a slow, almost musical exhale. It's hard to believe how far you both have come, from the spice-drenched ports of Bengal to the painted halls of Beijing, from awkward cargo to divine metaphor, from curiosity to legend, and all thanks to a beast with knobby knees and no interest in politics. You lean back and murmur, "Let's not get any more ladders involved, okay?" The giraffe swats a fly with its tail and doesn't answer. The wind carries a hint of autumn now, soft and cool, curling through the palace courtyards like a sleepy cat. Leaves fall from the ginkgo trees in golden spirals. The giraffe has developed a taste for them, plucking them mid-air like lazy popcorn. You're sitting on the edge of the stone path, scribbling notes for a court official who insists on compiling a comprehensive treatise on Qilin dietary preferences. So far, your observations include: we'll eat almost anything green. Strong preference for mango. absolute menace when denied second breakfast. Meanwhile, the giraffe stretches its neck to delicately nibble a plum off a high branch. It does so with the poise of a poet composing a haiku and the appetite of a starving goat. Life at the palace has settled into something like a routine. The giraffe is no longer just a curiosity, it's an institution. You overhear children singing songs about the heavenly hoofed wonder. Merchants sell paper toys with bendable necks. There's even a small tapestry now hanging near the Hall of Benevolent Wisdom, showing the Qilin blessing the harvest while being serenaded by cranes. No cranes were actually involved. One afternoon, a scholar corners you in a library with a scroll that he claims contains an ancient prophecy. It foretells the coming of a gentle giant with skin like clouds and eyes like stars. He says breathlessly, "That must be your Qilin." You read the scroll. It's about a celestial ox that spits fire and lives on a mountain made of jade. Not a lot of overlap, but you nod anyway. "Yes," you say, deeply resonant. He walks off weeping with joy. You hope he's not planning a temple. Historians still argue whether people truly believe the giraffe was a divine creature or whether they simply enjoyed pretending. Probably a little of both. Faith and fun can be hard to separate when you're living in a palace of painted miracles. But then comes the moment that reminds you just how real it all still is. News arrives from the coast. Another tribute ship is returning, this time from Hormuz, with crates of lapis lazuli, scented oils, and an animal described in the letter as a water lion with whiskers and despair. You raise an eyebrow. A sea otter? A manatee? A very grumpy seal? The giraffe doesn't care. It just wants to know if the ship is also bringing more figs. The day the ship arrives, the palace erupts with fresh ceremony. Banners are raised. Drummers rehearse. Firecrackers are discreetly banned after what happened last time. You're asked to prepare the giraffe for a reappearance, an imperial reminder that China remains the magnetic center of the world. You lead it through the courtyard once more, bells jingling softly, silk harness gleaming. The giraffe, now fully accustomed to its stardom, walks with a practiced poise that is somewhere between divine messenger and disinterested fashion model. At the docks, the new animal is unveiled. It's a walrus, an enormous, tusked walrus lying in a tub of seawater, wheezing like an accordion left in the rain. The crowd is silent. Then, somewhere in the back, a child shouts, "It's a river Qilin." You stifle a laugh. Even the giraffe turns its head, blinking slowly at the blubbery creature, as if trying to decide whether it's friend, food, or particularly strange furniture. But what matters isn't whether it fits any scroll description. It's that it came, another impossible creature from another impossible place. More proof that the world is full of stories no one has heard yet. Later that evening, you sit by the garden pond with the giraffe at your side and the smell of incense and sea salt still clinging to your sleeves. Somewhere, a court musician is softly plucking a pipa. The walrus, now installed in a marble tub not far away, lets out a melancholic snort. The giraffe flutters its ears and leans into your shoulder. And you think, this isn't just about journeys. It's about arrival, the strange, quiet moment when something foreign becomes familiar, when the mythical becomes mundane, but in a way that's tender, not disappointing. The way the giraffe now feels like part of the palace, not despite its oddness, but because of it. Maybe that's what people see in it. Not just a sign from heaven, but a quiet, awkward miracle that stayed. You're in the calligraphy wing of the palace when it happens. A scholar from the Hanlon Academy bursts in, robes flapping, eyes wild. His ink brush is still in his hand. "They've written a play," he announces breathlessly, "about the Qilin." You pause. "You mean the giraffe?" He nods furiously. A 7-act morality drama with musical interludes and a scene where the beast teaches a corrupt governor the meaning of kindness. You're both impressed and slightly horrified. By the time you make it to the rehearsal courtyard, the actors are already in full costume. The Qilin is portrayed by 2 men inside a long, colorful robe, one controlling the head and one hunched at the back trying not to fall over. The front actor has attached painted chopsticks to his head to mimic ossicones. It's glorious. There's a scene where the Qilin, played with solemn wisdom and a suspiciously nasal voice, wanders into a starving village, miraculously causes crops to grow, then gently scolds a local official for hoarding millet. You squint. The scolding involve a lot of interpretive neck gestures. Backstage, you ask the playwright what inspired him. He puffs his chest. I dreamed of the Chilin. It told me peace was a bowl of steamed dumplings. You nod. A timeless truth. As the play gains traction, word spreads. Within weeks, versions of the performance are being staged across the capital. Puppet theaters, shadow plays, a particularly chaotic street troupe that insists their giraffe speaks in rhyme and defeats bandits with the power of song. Even the emperor hears of it. He requests a performance during a court banquet. You stand beside the real giraffe as the actors take the stage in the hall of literary splendor. The Chilin character enters to applause. The giraffe blinks and snorts softly, either flattered or deeply confused. The audience loves it. There's a musical number called Neck of Virtue, Heart of Leaves. A child actor delivers a monologue to the Chilin about following one's dreams. You glance sideways. The giraffe is chewing a decorative banner. Historians still argue whether these plays were state-sponsored propaganda or genuine expressions of cultural fascination. Probably both. But either way, the giraffe is no longer just a symbol. It's folklore now. It's art. Soon after, you're invited to consult on a scroll painting commission, a massive landscape depicting the emperor's reign, with the Chilin towering above a rice field in full bloom, mountains and tributary kingdoms kneeling at its hooves. You point out gently that the hooves are backward. The artist scoffs. Backward, or enlightened. You back away slowly. It's not just the artists. Philosophers start quoting the Chilin in their writings. Let us be gentle, like the giraffe, writes one. Another compares its slow walk to the ideal rhythm of ethical governance. A third simply titles his essay, On the Neck is a Path to Heaven. You begin receiving visitors, poets, monks, travelers from distant provinces. They don't come to gawk anymore. They come for wisdom. What does the Chilin teach us about balance? They ask. About patience. About love. You usually offer a few measured phrases. It eats slowly. Therefore it teaches restraint. Or, its calm presence brings clarity. They nod, eyes shining. One man bursts into tears. The giraffe, meanwhile, is trying to eat your sandal. At night, you start to hear songs drifting over the walls from the city beyond. Street performers with stringed instruments, vendors singing jingles. The giraffe has become a metaphor, yes, but also a mascot, a creature from elsewhere that somehow feels like home. And as silly as it sounds, it does feel special, magical even. Not because it glows or grants wishes, but because it stayed quiet, peaceful, gently absurd in a world full of loud chaos. There's a quiet power in that. One foggy morning, as autumn folds toward winter, the emperor himself visits the garden. No procession, no banners, just him and a few attendants. He stands for a long while watching the giraffe reach into a tree with its absurdly long tongue. Then he speaks, softly. When it arrived, I thought it was a message. Now I wonder if it is a question. You say nothing, just nod. The emperor leaves without another word. You watch him go, robe trailing behind him like wind over still water. Later, when the giraffe whisperer appears beside you with a bowl of steamed turnips. They're all trying to make sense of it, he says. The plays, the paintings, the stories. But maybe it's not meant to make sense. Maybe it's just nice. You smile. Nice, you repeat. The giraffe sneezes into the koi pond. Very auspicious. Wing mutters. You sit together under the falling ginkgo leaves, the giraffe swaying beside you, its head drifting among the gold. And in that moment, none of it needs to be explained. You wait to frost on the windows. The palace is quiet in that deep winter sort of way. All bundled robes and muffled footsteps, and the smell of charcoal braziers tucked under scroll tables. The giraffe doesn't like the cold. Its knees seem creakier, its mood a little broodier, and you've caught it glaring at a snowman like it personally offended heaven. Wings taken to draping it in thick woven cloth, embroidered with cloud motifs. If it's a divine beast, it should at least look seasonally fashionable, he declares, cinching the sash with more ceremony than a royal wedding. The giraffe endures it. In the gardens, the plum trees are bare, and the koi have gone still beneath thin ice. You keep the giraffe moving, a slow loop each morning around the warmed outer pavilions. It sniffs the crisp air, flicks snow off its eyelashes, and tolerates your narration of every leafless bush like a nobleman stuck on a dull tour. The courtiers grow quieter too. The novelty has dulled slightly. There are fewer poems, fewer scrolls, fewer spontaneous debates over the symbolism of hooves. But that's not a bad thing. The giraffe has gone from spectacle to staple. It's part of palace life now. It shows up in the background of events like it belongs. Weddings, harvest blessings, even a bizarre ice sculpture festival where a group of artists carved a chilin entirely from frozen rice porridge and had to rebuild it 3 times before it stopped collapsing. Historians still argue whether this gradual shift from divine omen to beloved oddity was due to changing court fashions, bureaucratic distraction, or simple human nature. But to you, it feels inevitable. Every miracle gets normalized eventually, but it's in this quieter winter, oddly enough, that something unexpected begins to happen. The giraffe becomes a comfort. You notice it when a weeping noblewoman walks by after receiving bad news, and the giraffe lowers its head and nuzzles her shoulder. You notice it when the kitchen boy, whose hands are always burned and blistered, sits on a bench near the enclosure just to talk about his day. You see it when a blind monk from the southern provinces travels hundreds of miles to hear the breathing of heaven and sits quietly beside the giraffe, smiling the entire time. No one tells them to do this. They just do. You find yourself doing it too. There's something about the way the giraffe moves, slow, deliberate, curious. It notices the same things every day and still treats them like wonders. It stands still in the sun. It sways gently when bored. It chews everything like it's the first leaf it's ever tasted. And maybe that's why people keep coming. Not because it means something grand, but because it doesn't need to. Because here is this strange, out-of-place creature, living calmly in a world that should not make sense for it. And yet it does. One afternoon, the emperor's youngest son, barely old enough to say his own name, escapes his handlers and toddles out into the garden. He walks directly up to the giraffe, arms outstretched, and declares, "I am a dragon." The giraffe stares, then bends its long, ridiculous neck and rests its chin gently atop the boy's tiny head. Wing faints. You don't blame him. That moment becomes a woodblock print. It's mass-produced within the month. The Chilin blesses the young phoenix. You see copies everywhere, in tea shops, schools, even scrawled in chalk on a wall outside the palace. By now, no one cares what a real Chilin looks like. This is the Chilin, and in that, something kind of magical happens. It's no longer about being correct. It's about being beloved. You pass a market vendor selling candied fruit shaped like a giraffe. You overhear someone say they're naming their daughter after its spotted coat. A group of performers are planning a lantern shaped like its silhouette for the spring festival. It's no longer just a guest. It's family. That evening, you and one light a small lantern and float it across the pond. For the new year, he says. For the giraffe, you say. And it's still there, still towering and soft-eyed and gently absurd. Still reaching for the high branches. Still here. And you realize suddenly that even though it was sent as tribute, framed as a gift to the empire, it's given something back. Something quiet. Something enormous. It gave people something to believe in, even if just for a little while. And in the hush of winter, with starlight frosting the world and the giraffe's long shadow curling across the garden stones, you sit down beside it. You say nothing. Just listen to the slow rhythm of breath and wind and the distant hum of a palace dreaming in the cold. The spring festival arrives with drums, incense, and so many firecrackers, you're convinced half the courtyard is permanently deaf. Red lanterns sway like jellyfish from every beam. Paper dragons twist through the air. Even the royal goats are wearing little gold hats, much to their displeasure. And of course, the giraffe has a starring role in the celebrations. It now has its own festival costume. You're not making that up. Some genius in the Imperial Wardrobe Department spent 3 weeks sewing a ceremonial robe large enough to drape over most of the giraffe's back. It's embroidered with phoenixes, waves, and something that might be an immortal fish playing a flute. The whole thing is fastened with 4 silk cords and 3 very nervous eunuchs. The giraffe, bless its patient soul, simply stands there, blinking in slow time as everyone oohs and ahs. Occasionally, it tries to eat its own sash. You walk beside it in the lantern parade, which winds through the palace and spills into the outer courtyard, where commoners are allowed to gather for this one night of shared spectacle. Candles flicker, gongs sound, people cheer, and when the giraffe steps into view, there's a collective gasp, a wave of laughter, awe, and joy ripples through the crowd. Someone throws petals. A child shouts, "The Chilin has come to bless the new year." Someone else faints dramatically. It might be for show, but no one questions it. It's no longer even about the real animal anymore. It's about what it's become. A piece of the calendar. A mark of the times. A walking myth wrapped in fabric and fruit snacks. You glance over at Wang, who's holding a treat pole like a scepter and looking smug. "Told you the robe would work," he mutters. And sure, it drags a little in the back. And sure, the giraffe steps on it twice and almost knocks over the Minister of Rights. But the crowd adores it. They cheer like they're seeing an old friend after a long journey. Later that night, as the last of the fireworks light up the sky, the emperor makes an appearance. He says nothing, just watches the giraffe from across the courtyard, arms folded in his sleeves, snow caught in his beard. You're standing nearby when he turns slightly toward you and says, "Do you think it knows?" You blink. "Knows what, Your Majesty?" That it's become more than itself. You look at the giraffe, now carefully licking frosting off a ceremonial offering table. "I think it knows it likes candied lotus root." You offer. He chuckles. Just once. Then turns back to the stars. Historians still argue whether Yonla ever saw the giraffe as just an animal. To some, he used it purely as a symbol of divine mandate. To others, it became personal, something between pet, prophecy, and political punctuation. You suspect the truth, as always, floats somewhere in the middle. In the weeks after the festival, more gifts arrive for the giraffe than for the crown prince. Baskets of fruit, silk flowers, poems, letters asking it to bless marriages or heal colicky babies. You start organizing them into piles, edible, vaguely artistic. And what even is this? One day, a basket arrives from a rural village hundreds of li away. Inside, a small clay figurine of the giraffe, painted with loving detail, and a note written in a child's careful hand. "Dear Chilin, thank you for being real." That one hits you harder than expected. You leave the figurine, near the giraffe's sleeping spot. It sniffs it once, then lies down beside it like it understands. And maybe it does. You notice something else changing, too. The palace itself feels different now. Softer in a way. There's still the bureaucracy, the protocol, the poetry competitions no one wins because the emperor is always mildly disappointed in the metaphors. But there's also laughter, warmth, and a kind of patience that didn't exist before the giraffe. People stop to watch it just be. Not perform, not impress, just exist. And that somehow is enough. One morning, you catch him writing something in a small notebook. "What's that?" you ask. He shrugs. "Just tracking the days. How long it's been here. What it's done." You glance at the list. Most entries are simple. Ate 3 baskets of mulberry. Sat in the sun for an hour. Watched clouds. You smile. You're writing its memoir. He smirks. It's a very boring memoir. But maybe that's the point. That night, as the stars creep out from behind the clouds, you find yourself beside the giraffe once more, watching it stretch its neck toward a low-hanging moon. And you wonder, what will happen when it's gone? When time moves on, as it always does. When the emperor fades from history. When the palace changes hands. When the paintings yellow and the poems are forgotten. Will the giraffe still be remembered? Or more importantly, will this feeling remain? This quiet magic? This gentle absurdity? This unexpected miracle of something foreign becoming beloved? The giraffe lets out a long, slow breath. You mimic it, smiling in the dark. Right now, it's still here. And that's enough. The rains come early this year. Soft at first, like someone politely tapping on the roof tiles, but soon they swell into proper monsoons, turning the palace walkways into lazy canals and the gardens into dripping jungles. Everything smells like wet bark and old tea leaves. You've taken to stuffing straw in your shoes to keep your feet from squishing. The giraffe doesn't seem to mind. It sloshes through the mud with a kind of regal indifference, pausing occasionally to drink rainwater straight from the air. One morning, you catch it standing perfectly still in the downpour, eyes half-lidded, as if conducting a very long and slow performance piece called Existence is Moist. Wang, meanwhile, is building a roofed structure out of bamboo and sheer determination. "We can't have it slipping," he grumbles. It's already shaped like a collapsed umbrella stand. Despite the weather, the giraffe's status continues to grow. A new imperial edict is issued. All official depictions of the Chilean must include a spotted coat, long legs, a gentle gaze, and fruit-bearing trees nearby. You hear a Confucian scholar mutter, "We've gone from myth to mascot." He says it like it's a bad thing. You disagree. The new craze? Giraffe calligraphy. Stylized versions of the word Chilean are being written with long, looping lines meant to mimic the animal's neck. One particularly ambitious student invents a character that takes 15 strokes just to suggest a majestic wobble. The examiners hate it. He receives top marks anyway. Historians still argue whether the giraffe altered Ming aesthetics or merely inspired a brief fad. But in scroll after scroll, it keeps reappearing, no longer just an exotic gift, but a character in the Dynasty's visual language. A tall, leafy exclamation point. You begin to notice little giraffe-like details cropping up everywhere. A palace fan painted with spots. An incense burner shaped like its curved neck. A batch of mooncakes featuring, of all things, an imprint of its face. The pastry is disturbingly accurate, right down to the expression of vague disapproval. One afternoon, the giraffe comes to a stop in the middle of the path and refuses to move. You try coaxing. Wang tries sweet potato slices. Nothing. Then you realize it's waiting for the gardener to move a frog out of its way. You sigh. This is your world, and we just live in it. The giraffe nods, very slowly. But not everything is lighthearted. Word reaches the palace that one of the giraffe's companions, another animal brought from afar, has passed away in a southern port, unable to adjust to the climate. The news arrives wrapped in velvet and diplomacy, but the meaning is clear. Even miracles have limits. You find yourself watching the giraffe more closely. Its slow movements, the way it tests each puddle before stepping through, the longer naps, the way it leans against the stone walls as if holding up the world. It's still strong, still curious, but quieter now. The court doesn't notice, too busy composing a new opera where the Chilean saves a village by sneezing on it. You wish that were a joke. The props department is building a 10-foot paper tongue as we speak. You and Wang begin keeping closer watch. You take turns sitting near it after dusk, listening to the soft rustle of its breath and the occasional snort as it dreams. If giraffes even can dream, no one really knows. Historians debate that too. You don't speak much during these evenings. The silence feels sacred. The giraffe will sometimes glance over, blink once, then resume whatever it was doing, usually chewing the same leaf for 15 minutes straight. But one night, as you sit under the eaves with a teacup balanced on your knee, you speak. Do you think it misses home? Wang is quiet. Then, I think it made a new one. The rain continues to fall. Gentle, persistent, like time itself. And still, the giraffe stands. A creature not born of this place, but somehow now the heart of it. A walking wonder. A spotted reminder. A soft-footed teacher with no lesson plan. And for reasons you still can't explain, you feel grateful. Grateful to have witnessed it. Grateful to have known it. Grateful that for one improbable span of years, a giraffe walked through the Ming Dynasty, and the world was better for it. You lean back against the wall, watch the rain bead on its hide, and breathe in the damp, earthy stillness. In the language of the court, in the painted symbols of fate, there are endless ways to say divine. But here, in the soft hush of twilight, with a giraffe standing tall beside you, none of them feel quite as perfect as simply real. Time, as always, slips forward. The giraffe's coat lightens a little. Its steps grow slower. The silk halter you once struggled to fasten now hangs a little loose. But it still walks the garden each morning, still leans into one shoulder during grooming, still eyes your tea as if wondering whether it counts as salad. The courtiers speak of it less often now, not out of forgetfulness, but familiarity, like a painting long hung on a wall. No less beautiful, just part of the room. And in that quieting, something remarkable begins to take shape. Legacy. A scholar from Suzhou arrives with a cart full of texts, eager to catalog the giraffe's influence. It's not merely zoological, he insists. It's cosmological. Agricultural yields increased in its first year. There were fewer typhoons. My uncle's gout improved. You smile politely and point him toward the giraffe, which is currently trying to lick condensation from a bronze incense urn. One begins sketching it each day, not in the grand, poetic style of court painters, but small observations. A wrinkled eyelid, the curve of its back, a hoof print in the mud. I just want to remember it exactly, he says. You know the feeling. The imperial astrologers mark its birthday, well, arrival day, on the official lunar calendar. It becomes a minor holiday, Chilean Day, celebrated with mango tarts, tall paper puppets, and a surprising amount of interpretive dancing. One performance features a man on stilts chasing a dragon made of parasols. The giraffe is unimpressed. Even the emperor has softened toward it in old age. You catch him one morning, wrapped in heavy robes, standing by the garden. No attendants, no fanfare, just him and the giraffe. He reaches up, his hand trembling slightly, and lays it gently against its leg. Still here, he murmurs. Still kind. Historians still argue whether Yongle ever truly believed it was a Chilean. But no one doubts he came to love it, not in the loud, poetic sense, but the way one loves a quiet place, or a memory that softens over time. That same season, a delegation arrives from the southern kingdoms, bringing spices, fabrics, and a bird they call a fire hen. It looks like an angry rooster dipped in lantern oil. The giraffe watches it from a respectful distance, blinks twice, then goes back to chewing a branch. One of the delegates approaches you. We heard of the great Chilean, he says. Is it true it grants wishes? You consider your answer carefully. It grants something better, you say. Perspective. He nods, not entirely sure what you mean, and leaves a fruit basket as offering. The giraffe selects only the papaya. You notice that people now speak of it with the same tone they use for mountains or rivers. Not amazed, but reverent. It's no longer the giraffe. It's our giraffe, the palace giraffe, the empire's quiet miracle, and it has changed people. The calligraphy styles once inspired by its neck have evolved into a softer, looping script now used in children's books. Architects begin to incorporate graceful tilt into temple roofs. A philosophy student coins a new principle: tallness of thought, gentleness of action. Wang and you sometimes laugh about it. It's a good thing it didn't kick anyone important, he says. We might be worshipping its hoof prints. But the truth is, the giraffe never needed to do anything remarkable. It just needed to be here. That was enough. One morning, deep in early spring, you find it resting more than usual. Its breaths are slower. Its gaze lingers. You sit beside it for a long time. No treats, no tricks, no rope. Just silence and sunlight, and the faint smell of budding apricot blossoms. It leans its head gently against your shoulder. For one beautiful, impossible second, the weight of its long neck rests fully on you. Heavy, warm, peaceful. It closes its eyes. You don't move. Later, one arrives. He kneels beside you, brushing a few petals from the giraffe's brow. No words. You watch the clouds drift past, and something inside you, soft, wide, and wordless, says goodbye. That evening, a single lantern is lit in the garden and placed near the fig tree. The giraffe's favorite. People gather quietly. No proclamations. No drama. Just soft footsteps, shared glances, and memories. In the days that follow, scrolls are written. Statues are carved. And across the empire, people speak of the time the heavens sent a Chilean to walk among them. But you remember something simpler. A creature with a silly tongue. A taste for mangoes. a strange patience, a friend. Spring thickens. The fig tree by the garden wall bursts into green. Bees hum like tiny monks. Plum blossoms drift like snow. And the sun returns to the sky with the lazy confidence of someone who knows they're admired. The garden, once ruled by the slow rhythm of hooves, now seems quieter, but not empty. The giraffe is gone, but it hasn't left. Not really. You still see it everywhere. In the worn path through the grass, where it used to walk. In the high branches bowed just slightly, like they're still waiting to be nibbled. In the leaning posts Wang swore he'd fix last autumn, but never did. They add character, he claims. And of course, in the people. Children now mimic its walk, trailing arms behind their backs like long legs. Artists still paint it, sometimes faithfully, sometimes wildly. One scroll shows it flying, wings outstretched, scattering peace over a battlefield. You hang that one in your study. The palace doesn't forget. The emperor orders a pavilion built in the giraffe's honor, not grand or towering, but quiet, with curved eaves and a round bench in the center. A place to sit, to look up at the fig tree, and to remember what once walked there. It's named the Hall of Gentle Wonder. Wang starts giving small talks there. Not lectures, just stories. He tells children about the time the giraffe refused to walk around a turtle, or how it once stole an entire papaya from a foreign dignitary and chewed it smugly during trade negotiations. He even makes a puppet for the kids, a giraffe with button eyes and a neck made of twisted silk. It looks nothing like the real thing, but the joy it brings is unmistakable. You still keep a piece of the old halter on your desk. Some days, when the world gets too loud, you visit the pavilion. You sit on the round bench. You close your eyes. And in the hush, in the drifting blossom-scented breeze, you remember what it sounded like to live alongside wonder. Historians still argue whether the giraffe's arrival changed the course of Ming history. Some say it was a diplomatic footnote. Others claim it marked the height of Yongl's global ambition. A few write long essays comparing its legs to the spread of Chinese influence. But the truth isn't in the records. It's in the memories, the slow joy, the soft awe, the quiet shift of the world as it made space for something absurd and gentle. Because it wasn't just a giraffe. It was an invitation to wonder, to imagine, to believe that maybe, just maybe, something beautiful and strange could arrive one day and decide to stay. And maybe that's why people still come. To the garden, to the stories, to the statue that now stands, not grand in gold, but simple in stone, neck tilted slightly upward toward the trees. They come to remember a moment when the world, with all its chaos and clamor, paused to watch something impossible reach for a leaf. Now we slow everything down. The garden, once full of voices and footsteps and stories, fades into gentle silence. You feel the hush of twilight stretching across the stones, wrapping the fig tree in shadows, settling softly where the giraffe used to sleep. The air is warm, thick with that first promise of summer, and everything moves a little slower now. You breathe in. The scent is memory, sweet leaves, old wood, morning mist on stone. You breathe out. The weight of the story begins to drift like dust, settling into place. You imagine the giraffe, its long shape silhouetted against a pink dusk sky, ears twitching at the wind, breath rising like steam. It turns, for just a moment, and looks at you. Not with grandeur, not with mystery, just kindness. The kind of gaze that says you're safe. You were here, and you mattered. And maybe, just maybe, that's what the giraffe left behind. Not just legends, not just paintings, but the memory of being seen, of living alongside something gently miraculous. So now you close your eyes. Let the hum of the world soften. Let the night fold around you, slow and certain. And as the last light fades behind the garden wall, you feel it. A long neck, a quiet breath, the soft, steady presence of a wonder that came, stayed, and left everything just a little more beautiful than it was before. Sleep well now. You've walked with the Qilin,